Imagine driving your car in a country where no driver's permits are needed, where there are no rules governing the use of the roads. Wouldn't you agree that this would be both chaotic and dangerous? What is the link with this and wastewater? Well, in most Caribbean countries, wastewater management is barely regulated. We still manage wastewater in a piecemeal fashion, allowing most of it to escape untreated into the natural environment. We must protect both ourselves and the environment upon which we depend for key economic activities such as tourism and fishing. We can do this by giving wastewater treatment and management greater priority. As it is, we're going nowhere fast, and safety concerns continue to mount. Presently, 70% of the pollution of the Caribbean Sea is from land-based sources and activities, including agricultural waste products such as pesticides and fertilizers, sewage and solid waste. As much as 80% of domestic wastewater or sewage is entering the marine environment with minimal treatment.
At the moment, the responsibility for wastewater services lies fairly and squarely with the water utility in each of the islands throughout the Caribbean. That means that they are responsible not only for water supply, but for also providing wastewater services. So it's a unified service. Water supply services are things that people want. Wastewater, what you've done after you've used water, well, it becomes a hindrance. One of the differences, for example, between the provision of water services and wastewater is people are prepared to pay for water services, but they feel somewhat reluctant to pay for wastewater services. That brings in questions of affordability. Well, so some of the policy issues that there are around wastewater services are what is your policy over cost recovery? How are you going to finance these services? And they are services that the whole community benefits from. One can also ask, what is the role of the private sector within this? Because if you look throughout the Caribbean, most jurisdictions, the sort of centralized wastewater services vary between 5% of covering 5% of the population up to about 14%. I think in Trinidad it's around about 30%. That means that most of the other inhabitants rely on some other system for waste disposal. So it's usually septic tanks. It could be packaged treatment systems in the case of hotels or industries. So how do you regulate them? How do you make sure that they comply with standards? And that is one of the areas where legislation and policy is somewhat hazy. If you don't do that, what are some of the consequences if you don't have that sort of clear institutional framework, that clear division of responsibility, that clear policy direction? What happens if you don't have it? It means that wastewater is being disposed of into the environment. Whatever is disposed of goes into the ground, gets into the groundwater, and that is the same groundwater that is being used for water supply. It's not just people that are being put at risk, not just their health, but their livelihoods as well are being put at risk. Whatever goes into the groundwater is going to find its way into the marine environment. Marine environment, that is a resource that the tourism industry uses. The attraction of coral reefs, the attraction of beaches, the attraction of palm trees there. If we get pollution going into the marine environment, it's going to affect the vitality of coral reefs as they degrade, as they have done in certain places. They are going to become less attractive. If they are less attractive, then tourists are mobile. They will go where they feel they are getting better value for money. It's one of the reasons why the LBS protocol, the Cartagena Convention, land-based sources of pollution came in to try and address this problem.
This situation is the result of an inadequate policy, legal and regulatory framework to effectively support wastewater management, insufficient financing for modern wastewater and sewage treatment plants, and the low priority placed on wastewater treatment due to competing national priorities, as well as the fiscal constraints faced by countries in the region.
When the protocol was developed, it recognized that there were two areas that we needed to focus on as a priority: the control of domestic wastewater discharges and the control of runoff from agricultural activities. Countries were doing a lot of activities on the ground. They were doing small projects, but it wasn't being coordinated. And in fact, in the protocol, what the framework that it now establishes really recognizes that a lot more needs to be done at the policy level and at the institutional level to improve pollution management in the region. Under the Jeff Crew project, for example, we undertook quite a detailed analysis as to what have been the challenges that countries are facing in ratifying the protocol. As I mentioned, although we have 28 countries, only 11 have ratified, but even the ones who have ratified are having problems in implementing. Why have they not implemented in a more coordinated manner? There were some very interesting findings. There are some policies present, but in many cases the policies are not complementing one another. For example, we have a policy on water that doesn't complement a policy in tourism, that doesn't complement a policy in waste management. And to effectively address pollution, and in particular to effectively address wastewater management, we need to have better coordination and better analysis of the different policies which we do have.
Addressing wastewater management effectively at the national and regional levels must involve a range of partners, from individual governments to regional bodies, and even to private entities and the operational arms of agencies. If the correct policies are not in place, progress may be hindered.
In St. Lucia, what we think we would want to be implemented is a more focus on the wastewater control. But a new policy we would want is, say, some sort of ability to act to enforce the rules ourselves, because as it stands, we have to go through the police force to get anything enforced.
Regional and sub-regional political agendas established through organizations such as CARICOM, the OECS and SICA, and associated technical arms like CARFA and CCAD can influence national policy. In 2013 and 14, the Global Water Partnership Caribbean, the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association, and the Jeff Crew project collaborated to promote holistic management of water in the region.
The main opportunity comes through a high-level segment, which we host together with our partner, Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association, to encourage our ministers with responsibility for water to set the program in water and wastewater management. We had an opportunity through the HLS to lay out what compliance meant. Compliance meant introducing national legislation, national regulations, harmonizing what's being done at the public health end with the tourism end, and certainly setting up a comprehensive framework for the management of wastewater.
In April 2014, regional partners in the water and wastewater sectors met in Barbados to build on past regional collaboration initiatives aimed at rationalizing and coordinating the region's programs and activities in the areas of water resources management. This meeting was spurred on by the recognition that there needs to be more coordination of efforts at regional level if available expertise and resources are to be maximized and shared.
Regional participation, regional collaboration has its challenges. Already the instrument is a regional instrument, so we have collaboration to that extent. The CARICOM heads of government have recognized that wastewater is an interesting and important element of that water and wastewater management framework.
The level of uptake of policy and good practice by individual countries, however, will require a clear implementation strategy at local level.
For the Jeff Crew project, we have taken a deliberate initiative to focus on how can we help countries at the national level streamline their national policy in different sectors so that it complements wastewater management. So I just give one example. The crew wants to promote wastewater reuse in agriculture. This has impacts on human health, it has potential impacts in agriculture, it has potential impacts in water. What the crew project is doing is working with countries to see how can we coordinate, how can we refine and reform your national policies in different sectors so that they support the overall objective of the crew, which is to improve the management of wastewater.
New legislation, amendments to existing legislation, directives to utilities and enforcement agencies, the creation of special initiatives or funds are all possible responses to the need to manage wastewater better. Enabling policy, institutional and legal frameworks will assist in ensuring that investments in wastewater management infrastructure and the services do not become a financial drain, but better safeguard existing products and assets while protecting health and opening up new development opportunities.